Millions of people walk past the world's most famous landmarks. Every single year, they take the photograph. They check it off the list. They move on to the next stop on the itinerary. And almost none of them know the real story behind what they are looking at. The accidents, the controversies, the near disasters, the strange coincidences that shape the thing they are standing in front of. Every famous landmark in the world has a hidden history, a story that the postcards and the guidebooks rarely tell. And today, we are going to tell you those stories. The ones that will completely change the way you look at some of the most photographed places on Earth. Let's begin with a structure that almost didn't survive its own 20th birthday, the Eiffel Tower in Paris. When the Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889, it was never meant to be permanent. It was built as the centerpiece of a World's Fair celebrating the centennial of the French Revolution, and the original permit granted for its construction specified that it would stand for exactly 20 years before being dismantled. Many of Paris' leading artists and intellectuals despised it from the moment it was proposed. A group of prominent cultural figures signed a public letter calling it a monstrosity, an eyesore that would disfigure the city for as long as it stood. One famous writer reportedly ate lunch in the tower's restaurant every single day for years, not because he loved the view, but because, as he put it, it was the only place in Paris where he didn't have to look at the tower itself. So how did it survive past its 20-year expiration date? The answer is radio. In the years following its completion, military and scientific researchers discovered that the tower's extraordinary height made it an ideal location for radio antennae and long-distance wireless transmission experiments. The French military, recognizing its strategic value for communication, intervened to save it from demolition. The tower that was almost torn down as an eyesore ended up playing a critical role in military communications during the First World War, including reportedly helping to intercept enemy transmissions that contributed to a significant French military victory. The structure that Parisian intellectuals once begged to have removed became, within a few decades, one of the most beloved and most recognized monuments on Earth. From Paris, let's travel to Egypt, to a monument so ancient that even ancient civilizations considered it ancient. The Great Pyramid of Giza. Most people know the Great Pyramid as the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, built around 4,500 years ago as a tomb for a pharaoh. What most people don't know is just how precisely it was constructed, and how many of its original details have been lost to time. When it was completed, the pyramid was covered in a smooth outer layer of polished white limestone casing stones so precisely cut and fitted that the entire structure would have gleamed brilliantly in the desert sun, visible for enormous distances, completely unlike the rough, stepped surface that tourists see today. Most of that casing was removed centuries later by medieval builders who repurposed the stone for construction projects in nearby Cairo, including several of the city's most significant mosques and fortifications. Perhaps even more remarkable is the precision of the pyramid's construction. The four sides of its base are aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that modern surveying technology can barely improve upon, and the base itself is level to within a fraction of an inch across a footprint covering over 13 acres, an achievement that remains the subject of genuine debate among engineers and archaeologists about exactly how it was accomplished using the tools available 4,500 years ago. The pyramid was also, for thousands of years, the tallest human-made structure on Earth, a record it held for longer than any building since has come close to matching, only surpassed in height by structures built in the modern industrial era. Now let's travel to one of the most recognizable scalenes in the world, Sydney, Australia, and the extraordinary, troubled story behind the Sydney Opera House. The Sydney Opera House, with its iconic sail-like roof shells, is one of the most photographed buildings on Earth and a defining symbol of Australia. What most visitors don't know is that its construction was one of the most chaotic and contentious building projects in modern architectural history. The original budget for the building was approximately $7 million, with an estimated completion date in the mid-1960s. The actual final cost, when the building finally opened in 1973, was over $100 million. And the project took more than a decade longer than planned. The reason for the catastrophic overruns was, in large part, the architect's own ambition. The roof's distinctive curved shells, while visually stunning, presented engineering challenges that had genuinely never been solved before. For years, engineers struggled to find a way to construct the shells using technology and materials available at the time, and several early proposed solutions were scrapped entirely after years of work. because they proved structurally impossible. The political controversy surrounding the project's spiraling costs eventually led to the architect resigning from the project and leaving the country entirely before construction was finished, reportedly so frustrated by the political interference and public criticism that he never returned to Australia to see the completed building in person, even decades later, even after it had become one of the most celebrated architectural achievements of the 20th century. Let's travel now to Italy, to a tower that became one of the most famous landmarks in the world precisely because of a mistake. The Leaning Tower of Pisa. The Tower of Pisa was never supposed to lean. Construction began in 1173, and the tilt became apparent almost immediately. After only the first few floors had been completed, the soft, unstable subsoil beneath the structure, a mix of clay and fine sand unable to properly support the tower's weight, caused one side to begin sinking unevenly. Construction was halted for nearly a century due to ongoing regional conflicts, which inadvertently allowed the soil beneath the tower additional time to settle and partially stabilize. When construction eventually resumed, engineers attempted to compensate for the existing tilt by building the upper floors slightly taller on the leaning side, hoping to correct the imbalance. This effort, ironically, gave the tower its distinctive and now famous slight curve, since the correction only partially worked, and the structure continued tilting in subsequent centuries, as it was completed and used. By the late 20th century, the tower's lean had become severe enough that engineers feared imminent collapse, and the tower was closed to the public in 1990 for extensive structural stabilization work. A team of engineers spent over a decade carefully removing small amounts of soil from beneath the raised side of the tower's foundation, gradually and painstakingly reducing the tilt by approximately 17 inches, enough to stabilize the structure for an estimated several hundred years without ever fully straightening it, since by that point the Leaning Tower had become so iconic that completely correcting it was never seriously considered. A structural mistake that nearly led to the tower's demolition centuries ago became the very thing that makes it one of the most visited and most photographed monuments in the world. Now let's travel to India, to a monument built as one of the most extraordinary expressions of love and grief in architectural history, the Taj Mahal. Most people know that the Taj Mahal was built as a mausoleum, commissioned in the 17th century by an emperor in memory of his wife, who died during childbirth. What is less widely known is the staggering scale of resources and labor involved in its construction. Historical records suggest that more than 20,000 workers and artisans were involved in its construction over more than a decade, brought in from across the empire and, according to some historical accounts, from as far away as Central Asia and Europe, each contributing specialized skills in stone carving, calligraphy, and the intricate inlay work using semi-precious stones that decorates nearly every surface of the building. One of the most enduring legends associated with the Taj Mahal, though historians widely consider it to be unverified folklore rather than documented fact, claims that the emperor ordered the hands of the chief architects and craftsmen to be cut off after construction was completed, to ensure that nothing as beautiful would ever be built again. While this particular story is almost certainly untrue, with no credible historical documentation supporting it, the legend's persistence speaks to something genuine about the building's reputation, even from the earliest accounts. Observers struggled to believe that human craftsmanship could produce something this extraordinary, and the building's beauty has generated mythology and legend for centuries precisely because the reality of its construction already seemed to exceed what people believed was humanly possible. And finally, let's travel to South America, to a monument whose true age and original purpose remained a genuine mystery to the outside world for centuries. The Christ the Redeemer statue overlooking Rio de Janeiro. Most visitors assume the statue is far older than it actually is, given its now iconic status as a symbol of Brazil and Christianity worldwide. In reality, the statue was completed only in 1931, making it, in historical terms, a remarkably modern monument. What most people don't know is that the statue's distinctive open-armed pose, now one of the most recognized silhouettes on Earth, was the result of years of design debate, with early proposals including the figure holding a globe and a cross instead of the now famous, welcoming gesture. The final design was chosen specifically because its creators wanted the statue to represent peace and welcome rather than religious authority or judgment. The statue has also survived numerous lightning strikes over the decades, due to its exposed position on one of the highest peaks overlooking the city, and has required periodic restoration to repair damage to its outer soapstone covering. In one widely reported 2014 storm, a lightning strike caused visible damage to one of the fingers, requiring careful repair work by a small team of specialized stonemasons, who had to be lowered by ropes from the statue's outstretched arms to complete the restoration. Suspended hundreds of feet above the city below, a maintenance challenge that very few visitors, snapping photographs from the base ever think about. Every one of these landmarks, the Eiffel Tower, the Great Pyramid, the Sydney Opera House, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the Taj Mahal, and Christ the Redeemer, carries within it a story far more complicated, far more human, and far more interesting than the postcard version most visitors see. Structures nearly destroyed by their own creators. Monuments born from engineering mistakes that became their defining feature. Buildings that bankrupted their architects and outlasted the controversies that nearly killed them. The next time you stand in front of a famous landmark, anywhere in the world, take a moment before you take the photograph, because behind nearly every iconic view is a story of struggle, accident, ambition, and human stubbornness that the postcard never shows you, and knowing it changes everything about how you see the place in front of you.